I think we all know how much Stasis could use an update, but if there was one build that's still really good, it is definitely this one. There hasn't been a ton of Stasis builds with the launch of Lightfall, with how desperately it could use an update, and also the fact that Strand kind of does what Stasis does just a little bit better. The exception of that, in my opinion, is with this build specifically. Even with the removal of elemental shards, which is what made most Stasis builds stand out, this build still holds up and is arguably even better than what it once was. But even with some stuff going away, we did get some brand new things like an exotic that will pair extremely well with this build, and with the brand new mod rework, there are some things we can set up to get a lot of ability spam. This build also has access to deal with every single champion mod, so you don't have to worry about swapping off at all. And of course, if you haven't figured it out yet, we are talking about the Stasis Warlock, specifically the Bleak Watcher build. So if you want to slow freeze and shatter everything on the battlefield, this is definitely the build for you. From patrolling Neomuna, doing nightfalls, or even things like raids, this build can do it all. But really quick, speaking of raids, I want to thank today's sponsor of the video, Raid Shadow Legends. If you don't know what Raid is, it is a completely free-to-play mobile game with over 80 million players. You can expect amazing graphics with a ton of bosses and over 650 champions for you to choose from. All of these champions are completely customizable, and they're even adding new champions and updates every single month. Well, it's now officially been Raid's 4-year anniversary, and it's time to celebrate. To do that for fun, we're going to be looking at some champions that I would bring along for a dinner party. So in my head, I'm thinking all about the food and beverages, so I want to take somebody like Whirlum Frost King to help keep all the drinks cold. Now I'd also bring along Bastafus so he could help cut the food or any other hard packages with those sharp blades. I would also have to bring along Calvalax because he just seems like he would be a fun dinner guest. Then finally Tatura Rhyme because obviously we have to share with our pets too. And if you want to get on with the fun, be sure to let me know what 4 champions you all would choose as well. Now Raid also has one of its most requested features in the game, and that is live arena PvP. You get to battle other players in real time and have the ability to pick and ban certain champions to make things equal and determine who is the ultimate warrior. The new arena offers some really awesome rewards, and they range from things like artifact sets, fragments for a legendary void champion, and even special chests to unlock powerful bonuses in the Great Hall. With all that celebration, the perfect time to start playing, if you haven't yet, is right now. To get started with the head start, use my link in the description or scan the QR code on screen right now. We're on a quest to get a total of 45 installs, so let's try to conquer that together. If you do install with any of my links, you can expect an epic champion, Kellen the Shrike, and a bunch of other useful items such as energy refills, magic potions, and XP brews as soon as you log in. So what are you waiting for? Be sure to head down to the description or scan the QR code to claim your epic bonuses and to begin your epic raid journey. Once again, thank you so much to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring today's video, and let's jump right into it. So first thing, I think we need to go over how our exotics are going to pair with our subclass instead of going over the subclass first. So let's take a look at our exotic weapon, the Vergless Curve. This has the exotic trait Hell Barrage. Final blows of this weapon grant stasis arrows. Your next hipfire shot will fire all of them in a single volley. This also has the perk Hell Storm, so stasis arrows freeze targets on contact and create stasis crystals when affecting the environment. And then if you have the catalyst, freezing a target grants this weapon faster draw speed for a short period of time. So this bow on its own, in my opinion, is extremely good, and it's really good for in-game content because it can just do a chunk of damage. Also, every time you get a kill with this weapon, you're going to be able to hip fire it to freeze an enemy or make a stasis crystal that can also freeze enemies, and there is a lot of build crafting that can go into that. You can have up to 5 Hell Barrage shots, and when you shoot that out, you can essentially make a glacier grenade with this bow. Now the cool part about this is that you have complete control of when you want to shoot these. Aiming down sights will remove the Hell Barrage shot, and hip fire will proc it. So like I said earlier, that has a bunch of build crafting potential, and you can use that in a bunch of different ways. Now the exotic armor we're going to run is the Osmiomancy gloves, which has the exotic perk Fervent Cold Snap. Your Cold Snap grenades have an additional charge that recharges quicker on direct impact. The seeker spawn from Cold Snap grenades travels further. So this has a lot of cool interactions you can use with this. Not only are you going to be getting double grenades, which you could just use the Cold Snap grenade on its own, it will freeze a bunch of targets, and that is a very effective way to use it. A cool interaction with this is that if you actually throw the Cold Snap grenade on a target, then the Cold Snap grenade falls to the ground, you will essentially get double the amount of energy that you would normally get if you just threw it on the ground. That is something you should keep in mind if you are going to just be throwing the Cold Snap grenade just to freeze everything on the battlefield. battlefield. Now, the other interaction with these gauntlets is the fact that we're going to be running the Bleak Watcher aspect, which means we can turn our grenade into a stasis turret that will last a long time and slow and freeze enemies. Since this exotic grants you 2 grenades, this means you have access to 2 stasis turrets now, and you can even go the route of throwing 2 stasis turrets up, or you can have one conserve, so when the first one goes away, you can throw the next one, and then by the time that one is out, you can have another one recharge, and you can have pretty much infinite stasis turrets up on the battlefield 24/7. Either way you want to use it, from throwing a stasis turret to just throwing the grenade itself, they are both very, very strong. I find in lower end content, I normally just throw the cold snap grenade, but in harder in-game content, I normally do throw the stasis turret more because it does give you more bang for your buck, because it will last forever and pretty much freeze an entire battlefield. Now, thing to note is that you do need to run the cold snap grenade to take advantage of this, because the cold snap is what pairs with the Osmiomancy gloves. So if you run any other grenade, you will not get the benefits of that exotic. But since we're in our subclass, let's take a look at our other aspect, Ice Flare Bolts. So this says shattering a frozen target spawns seekers that track and freeze other nearby targets. This aspect is very, very strong. Every time you shatter a frozen target, you're essentially making another cold snap grenade that will go out and freeze another target. Then if you kill that target, it will make another Ice Flare Bolt, and it can just become this freezing chain reaction that is unstoppable. Pairing that with your stasis turret, that will also help you freeze things and then killing those shadow targets, and also with the ability to just throw your cold snap grenade literally all the time, you can have almost the entire battlefield frozen literally all the time. What's also really cool is that this will pair with your exotic bow. When you get those Hell Barrage arrows procced and you freeze targets, then kill them, they will also spawn Ice Flare Bolts. So everything in your kit has the ability to spawn these things, and they are, in my opinion, one of the strongest parts of the Shapebinder subclass. Now, you can't change it out, but Penumbral Blast is a great option as well if you need to just freeze a target that's running at you. Also, this can stun Unstoppable champion, since it does freeze. If you shatter that frozen target, they will become stunned. The other thing to note, that slow on stasis will also stun Overload champions, so your turret alone already has access to 2 champion mods, and with stasis in general in every subclass, it essentially has intrinsic anti-barrier, because if you freeze the target, it will essentially reproc the anti-barrier shield, and they will never be able to put it up. So stasis alone has access to with all 3 champions, and obviously you can further take other things on your weapons to improve that benefit. Now, I personally like to run Healing Rift just for survivability, and then Winter's Wrath is not that good of a super. It's okay for ad clear, it's not the best for damage, but what's really cool is that there is a new exotic that will actually pair with this to increase the damage, and it does go in your arm slot. So this just means you can quick swap off of Osmiomancy gloves and get that damage bonus, and then swap back if you want to. But in general, you don't really have to do that, and if you just want to use it for ad clear, that is totally fine as well. Now, fragments play a huge part in this build, and the first one we're going to go over is Whisper of Fissure. So this will increase the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. So since this whole build is about freezing targets all the time, this will just make them have bigger explosions to help further kill the next frozen target. Also, since your exotic can actually make stasis crystals, this just means those stasis crystals will now also have a bigger explosion to help out with ad clear. Now, I'm also going to be running Whisper of Endurance, so slow from your abilities last longer. For those abilities that linger, their duration will also increase. This is basically going to be your Bleak Watcher aspect. Essentially, this just makes your turret last a little bit longer, around 4 to 5 seconds, which is really, really good, and it just improves that slow, which is really, really nice. Now, I'm also going to be running Whisper of Shards, so shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increase the duration of this benefit. So before, Warlocks couldn't take advantage of this fragment that much unless you ran something like Headstone, but the fact that Virgil's Curve can just make the crystals itself means you can always be proccing this all the time, which will always give you that increased grenade regeneration rate, so you can throw pretty much any amount of Bleak Watchers that you want to, or just have infinite uptime on your cold snap grenade. It is very, very good. It pairs really well with this build and the exotic, and it's almost a must-have. And plus, also, it does give you 10 resilience, which is the strongest stat in the game for PvE. Then finally, I am running Whisper of Rending. So primary ammo weapons do increase damage to stasis crystals and frozen targets. So this is going to be really good, because obviously your bow is a weapon that uses primary ammo, and this just means that your bow will now do 50% more damage to frozen targets. Since the bow itself will freeze targets and your entire kit will freeze targets as well, you just pretty much have a constant 50% damage boost on your bow, which is very, very nice. That is going to be really good for in-game content, and what's also really good about this fragment is that it does increase increase the damage to stasis crystals. So that means your bow, when you make a stasis crystal, you can now just pluck your arrow and it will immediately one-shot it, which will also start playing into the rest of your build with fragments like Whisper of Shards and Whisper of Fissures. So overall, with this class and your 2 exotics, the synergy is off the charts. It's one of the most synergistic builds in my opinion, and we're just getting started. We haven't even gotten into mods yet. Really quick though, let's go over stat distribution. The main things you want to look out for is 100 resilience and 100 discipline. If you can get another 100 stat, I would definitely go for recovery. It is not needed, but that will just help out your survivability because you'll get more health generation and increases your rift cooldown rate. Resilience is obviously good for damage reduction, and then discipline is obviously going to be your best option because this will let you spam more grenades more often. Also, for other weapons, they don't matter nearly at all, so just run whatever's in the meta. Obviously, rockets are really good for boss DPS. Then if you want to run like a special active weapon, things like the Royal Executioner or even Forbearance, that could also be really good. The main thing is just Vergil's Curve is a must-have with this setup. And then for artifact mods, literally nothing in here matters pretty much at all. The only thing that you can really take advantage of are things like authorized mods grenades, which is going to be really good for reducing some of the cost of our grenade mods. There is also Overload Bow you can take advantage of, but since your stasis kit already is doing overload in itself, you don't really have to take advantage of that. But this just means now your Vergil's Curve could do overload and unstoppable, and also intrinsically anti-barrier if you do get the freeze off. And the only real mod that I guess can kind of do something is prismatic transfer. So if you do pop your super, this will actually give your teammates a 20% damage boost for 10 seconds, which will be very good if you just need to ad clear a lot. You can pop your super, you're doing a bunch of ad clear with that, and then also everybody else is doing more damage. But with all that out the way, let's jump over into the mods. And if y'all want to see a infographic of this entire build, be sure to head over to Mobalytics. I will link it down below, and you can check out everything there if you want more of a guide when you're putting it together. But all right, these are the mods I'm going to be running, and starting off with our helmet, we're going to be taking a stasis siphon. So every time we get rapid weapon final blows with our Vergil's Curve, we will make an orb of power. Orbs are really good for giving you some extra super energy. On top of that, they will give you armor charge, which is going to be a main part of this build. Now for our other 2 mod slots, you can kind of run whatever you want to. I like to play into heavy ammo finder alongside heavy ammo scout, so I can be more of a supportive teammate. Since this is going to be more of a group activity build, this just means you can spawn heavy for your team, which is really good. But if you want to throw on literally anything else, you can totally do that. I would just highly recommend this if you are going to be playing with a bunch of teammates. Now for our arms, we're going to be running triple grenade kickstarts. You don't really have to take things like loaders since you are running a bow. It doesn't really matter as much, and your grenades and melee aren't going to be getting kills, so you're not really going to be making orbs with those. The only other mod I could kind of recommend is bolstering detonation, so you get class ability energy when you deal grenade damage, but you don't really need to get that class ability that much because the whole point of this build is just to freeze everything, and I think grenade kickstart does that the best. So what this does is when you fully expand your grenade energy, you will get some grenade energy back, and if you do have armor charge, you essentially will get even more grenade energy. 3 mods of these will stack, and if you have max armor charge with 3 of these, you essentially get almost half your grenade back once you throw it. And then obviously with your stasis turret lasting a long time, you can pretty much immediately get another one back, so you always have an infinite uptime of these turrets. Also with 3 of these, and if you are just throwing the cold snap grenade, you literally have 100% uptime on your grenade all the time. You don't have to worry about ever not having a charge if you are doing the interaction where you throw it on an enemy before it hits the ground. It is very strong, and I would highly recommend just running 3 of these. But again, if you want to stick to 2 or maybe even just 1 and run some other stuff, you can, but in my opinion, this is the strongest setup. Now for your chest piece, we're not really taking advantage of any of the other armor charge, so just make sure you have all your resistant mods equipped for whatever battle you're going into, just to increase your survivability. Now for legs, I do like to run a recuperation, which will give me some health when I pick up an orb of power, and also double innervation. So this gives you around 25% of your grenade energy when you pick up an orb. Since your bow will be making orbs all the time with stasis siphon, that just means you're going to have constant health regeneration alongside having a bunch of grenade energy recharge 24/7. Pairing innervation with grenade kickstart just means you can have, again, pretty much infinite uptime with your Bleak Watcher. Then finally for my bond, I do like to run double bomber since I do have a bunch of recovery, so I can just always have my rift back. This will just give me some grenade energy when I cast my rift, and I also have a proximity ward, so I'll get an overshield when I finish a target. You can swap this out for literally whatever you want to. The only thing I would not recommend is any of the other mods that do require armor charge, since you're really only wanting your grenade kickstart to consume your armor charge. So I just like running something like this just for a little extra survivability. If you want to run 3 bombers, you could, or even throw in something like distribution, you can do that as well. But in my opinion, 2 is way more than enough. I could probably probably also just take one of these out for something else, and that's why I just threw on a proximity warp. But again, just swap this out for however you like it. The main thing you really need is just your innervations and grenade kickstarts alongside your strand siphon. But that's pretty much the build. Again, as a quick rundown, Stasis has access to every single champion mod. Your bow will be able to freeze and do a bunch of damage in in-game content. You can have 2 turrets or just infinite cold snap grenades all the time with your exotic gauntlets. Also, ice sword bolts will help you freeze everything on the battlefield alongside Whisper of Rending, giving you more damage to those frozen targets. You're also going to be causing more explosions with Whisper of Fissures. Your turrets last longer with Whisper of Endurance, and Whisper of Shards just gives you even more grenade energy to have more turrets up. That's pretty much all you really have to know with this build. Just make sure you're always shooting your stasis crystals that Vertigless Curve can spawn to always keep your grenade energy coming back. Now, if you were curious about the transmog, this is what I'm running if you want to make your Warlock look like this. I did just use every single shader instead of trying to swap everything out with this one. I did that because I actually do think this looks really cool on its own. It definitely gives that stasis look, that dark stasis look in my opinion, and I think it looks really good. But anyway, that's going to do it all for me. Let me know what you all think about this in the comments below. Have you been running stasis, or you just been sticking to strand? I definitely do think Stasis Warlock is still the outlier, and potentially with next season stasis having artifact mods or even stasis updates in general, this build could become very strong. But as always, if you all enjoyed and learned anything new, consider subscribing, drop a like, and turn those notifications on. Also, if you like joining my Discord or follow me on any of my socials, all that will be linked in the description as well. But just know watching this video is way more than enough, and that every single bit of support from you all is truly appreciated. Thank you all so much for watching this one, and have a great day. Peace.